Alright, another Raiders video. It's been too long. It's always been too long since my last Raiders video. Love making Raiders videos. I figured this is something I've done with a couple of teams. I'm not going to do it with every team, but maybe some of the interesting ones of kind of just breaking down their offseason and seeing what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. So the Raiders had a very fascinating offseason, certainly added some big names, Davante Adams, Chandler Jones, but I wanted to get into kind of the analytics side of things a little bit and talk about that, but also talk about, everything as a whole. So let's get into, I love my charts here on the Jackson Kruger Sports YouTube channel, so let's just get into some charts. So okay, here is the first chart. So these are the additions, and what you see from left to right is first the players, then you have the dollars spent, and this is in millions, of course, and then finally the WAR added. Now, this is using PFF's algorithm, which I have a little bit of some quibbles here and there with it, but it's a good baseline to use to talk about. So right off the bat, spending a lot of money on Davante Adams, and obviously paid the draft capital as well to get him. They have his WAR added at 0.78. Personally, I value receivers more. Kind of my data, I feel like feels as though receivers should be valued higher than PFF has them. But again, for a baseline, we'll go with that. Now, Chandler Jones is an interesting one. And again, I'm never a fan of these kind of contracts. I feel like they rarely don't live up to what you want them to live up to, but teams love handing them out like candy. So teams will gladly pay, good edge rushers 15 plus million. They're paying Chandler Jones 17 million a year. Jones, again, has been struggling with injuries the past couple of years. It hasn't been fully healthy and hasn't looked as good as he had in, say, 2019. So last year, 0.09 WAR added, which isn't a ton. But with 0.34 in 2019, that's what you're hoping for if you're a Raiders fan, is he returns to 2019 form. You don't need him leading the league in sacks. Just need him, being a good, solid edge rusher, which is, that's what you paid for 17 million, is a good, solid edge rusher. Now we have the Raiders adding a couple of guys who PFF has as negative players, Nichols and Brown. But again, I'm assuming that the Raiders did their due diligence and figured they would like how they could fit into their scheme, and they like the fit of just the players they will have around them. And so the hope is that those will be better contracts than what you see, because spending $5.5 million on a below replacement level player, that would not be ideal. Although Duron Harmon is one of the real steals of this free agency period. If he can replicate 0.23 wins above replacement added, that would be huge at just 1.27 million. Finally, Rocky Sin, who we don't have the WAR for him because he was a trade. PFF gives the WAR for all of the free agents, not all of the, or not even all the free agents, but the top 200 free agents, but not the trades. So we'll have to guess with Rocky Sin, but he's interesting, and he's certainly a player who I'm fascinated by. I think there's some things to like about him, some things to not like about him, and I'm interested in seeing how well he'll work out. So going over here now, this is the, at first glance, not looking great for the Raiders, right? You spent $55.77 million, and you only added 1.07 wins. You'd like to ideally get 2.23 wins out of that. And one thing always worth mentioning is I'm using the average, money spent annually. I like to use that. I think that's more accurate, but still, there's guaranteed money and stuff that will not end up getting paid out, which does mean that the money spent is probably in actuality a little bit lower than what I have there. But still, that's not great, right? You'd like to get 2.23 wins out of what you've spent. You're only getting 1.07. But again, there's some logic behind what you think could happen. So these are the ifs. So first, if Rocky Sin gets you 0.3 WAR, which I would guess is around what he got the Colts last year. That's just a guess. I don't know, but that's kind of from me studying his tape when I made that video about him. I have paid pretty close attention to him now. I think that seems reasonable, so that's what we'll go with. We'll say if Chandler Jones gets you 0.35 WAR, I rounded up to 0.35 because that makes for easier numbers. Which again, that's possible. We could see Chandler Jones return to form. I also have an if the threat of Adams gets you 0.5 more WAR, which again, for my model, would actually check out. I think Adams, that's kind of what I would put him at, although PFF does it differently. So if I'm right about that, you can add 0.5 more WAR to this model. And then just Nichols and Brown get you 0.1 WAR each, which I think you can hope for out of good good players who are at least decent and can, fill the role, be decent role players, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The total WAR added would be 2.42 if all of these ifs come true, which is higher than the 2.23 wins that my model says you need to be a championship contending team, which would then make this a good free agency. And so that's kind of the thing, is do you believe all or at least most of these ifs will come true, or again, at least come close to true, because you have about 2/10 of a WAR leeway there. Also worth mentioning, I would say Derek Carr is on a contract that I like. I think that that's good for him. So with that being said, I think the Raiders would have a pretty good chance. I think they have gotten closer to winning a championship with this, with how this has worked. Now, they've had some subtractions as well. They're what you see on the screen. The biggest of which, of course, is Casey Hayward, the third one down. He's only getting paid $5.5 million. He was over a half a WAR player last year. He was one of the best corners in football last year. I might even have him as higher than that. So that's the concern, is you're letting a good player walk out of the building. And guys who were solid, KJ Wright and Zay Jones for you on top of that. So in letting those guys go, you also lost your backup quarterback, if you care about that. Alec Ingold, I don't know how much WAR he added, but he's someone who you're losing a player. Those are the potential concerns, is, you see the totals at the bottom of your screen. It would have been a lot to replace all those guys. I'm not saying they should have, but you are letting about 0.88 wins go out of the door. So even if you're adding 2, you might only be adding 1 overall win. So yeah, as a whole, I'm not sure exactly where I grade this offseason. It's certainly not an A+ necessarily, because again, I'm just never going to be a fan of paying an edge rusher like that. I get the logic. I know that a lot of people disagree. If you're one of those people who disagrees, cool. We don't have to agree on everything. You say you can like the contract. I just never like those. I feel like those edge rushers tend to get pretty overpaid and get, even though I like Chandler Jones as a player, he's going to help the Raiders. That's not part of it. It's, you only have so much money to spend. Even if, the cap doesn't really work, there's a cash thing. Teams don't want to spend over a certain amount of actual cash. That's definitely a real thing. I think the Raiders could be in an interesting spot. I kind of do feel like this is kind of a year. I don't hate them going all in, like with the Devontae Adams move, for example. In fact, I kind of like that. Like, Derek Carr has 1 year left of being on a good contract. Let's try to win a Super Bowl this year while he's on that good contract. In my opinion, I made a model kind of I don't know if this video has been posted yet or not, but I made a video talking about how much a quarterback needs to add to your football team to be worth X amount of dollars. And for Derek Carr, as long as he's about a 3-win quarterback, which he was last year, and I think he will be this year, then you can be a championship team. I think that's good. I think that's one of the most difficult things in sports, is to get a quarterback on that quality contract. And so the fact that they have that for a year, go all in, try to win a Super Bowl. They're a good team in a good division, but they're a good team. And so that's kind of how I feel about that, how I feel about all of their moves. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the Las Vegas Raiders offseason? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.